A very concerning tropical storm is forming in the Caribbean Sea, and this is set to become a hurricane and possibly even a major hurricane over the next 7 days, and this could bring the potential for catastrophic problems to areas like the Greater Antilles. There's even reason to believe that this could end up impacting the United States in a little over 7 days from now. Additionally, a big storm is coming to the United States early next week, and that will bring the return of some significant severe weather. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. And we'll begin with what's happening in the Caribbean Sea right now. This right here is Tropical Storm Melissa. This is forecasted to become a hurricane over the next few days as it slowly moves to the west-northwest in the direction of Jamaica. This is currently located just to the south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And as it continues to move to the west, as I alluded to, it's going to be a very slow-moving tropical system, which means that this could bring catastrophic rainfall to areas like Jamaica, even possibly Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba over the next 7 days. Now, there is concern in the long term that this could go as far west as even going up towards Cuba and then potentially going over closer to Florida. There's also a possibility it turns way sooner than that. So there's a couple of scenarios at play right now, but there is reason to believe that this could be something that does impact the United States in approximately 7 to 10 days. Further off to the north in the United States, we do have a large low pressure system that is spinning over Michigan this morning. This is bringing lots of cold air out of Canada today, and you are definitely going to feel that if you're in the Ohio Valley or even back into the northern plains. Temperatures are currently falling by as much as 10 to 20 degrees, so very cold weather out there this morning. And this is a closer look of Tropical Storm Melissa just to the south of Haiti. This is a very impressive looking tropical storm when it purely comes to the convection. We have very deep cumulonimbus towers that are really starting to tower up across this area. What you're seeing with these pinks and whites, those are very cold cloud tops aloft. So overall, it's a pretty healthy system when it comes to the amount of moisture, but it is being sheared off quite a bit right now. You can actually see some of the low-level spin with some of these low-level cloud tops. So this thing is definitely starting to organize, but it's going to take a few days until this thing really gets to somewhere upwards of a category 1 or 2 hurricane, and then eventually it could make a run at becoming a major hurricane. Perhaps even upwards of a category 4 or 5 would not be out of the question with how slowly this is going to be moving in the Caribbean Sea. So right now, there is obviously a lot of concern right now with how slowly this is going to be moving, and another concern is that this could be a very powerful hurricane that impacts land. Now prepare yourself to see one of the strangest cones of uncertainty that the National Hurricane Center has ever put out. That is right, this is Tropical Storm Melissa's forecasted track over the next 5 days. It's barely going to move, let's just say that. This thing is literally taking the slowest path possible as it moves northwest in the Caribbean Sea. It's going to be moving northwest at probably about 2, 3, 4 miles per hour over the next few days as it heads up in the direction of Jamaica. In fact, we do have tropical storm watches in effect for Jamaica, and there's also hurricane watches in effect for parts of Haiti. This is forecasted to become a hurricane by as early as Friday, if not into early Saturday, and then from there, this thing could literally go anywhere. We could see this go further off to the west over the next few days and eventually turn off to the northeast as a cutoff low moves across the United States. That'll help to steer this thing at least at some point off to the northeast. There's also another scenario at play where this will turn much sooner off to the northeast, closer to the eastern side of Cuba. Now, obviously, there's big implications here because as this develops over the next few days, I do think that this is going to become a major hurricane at some point. And if that were to happen, it would almost undoubtedly be a very dangerous hurricane for some sort of land here, whether that's Cuba, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, or all of them. We could see big impacts for all 4 of these countries, but there's also a possibility that it takes a more westerly path. That would basically mean that Melissa slowly develops over the next few days. And if that were to happen, we could see some impacts even in parts of Florida. So this is something that we need to keep a very close eye on over the next few days. Now, before we go into the impacts and the scenarios of where Melissa could go over the next 7 to 10 days, I want to show you the HAFS-B model run. The reason why I'm showing you this is because it is a hurricane model, and it is showing something that I've never really seen before on a hurricane model this far out. So this is going into Friday morning. This will likely become a pretty strong tropical storm just to the southwest of Haiti and just southeast of Jamaica. Friday night into Saturday, this rapidly intensifies into a category 3 to 4 hurricane just to the south of Jamaica. And then by Sunday, the HAFS model here is showing this down to almost 900 millibars in intensity, and then it drops below 900 millibars as we go into Sunday evening, basically showing multiple instances of rapid intensification. Now, I do think that this could be exaggerated. It is definitely possible. However, if this hurricane is to stay over the Caribbean Sea without really interacting with land much, this is not far-fetched, and it's really not that exaggerated. This is definitely a possibility. Now, going under 900 millibars, that is extremely hard to do. Again, we have not really seen very many hurricanes do that over the last 10 years. Obviously, Milton did it last year, but having a sub 900 millibar hurricane is extraordinarily rare. With that said, that is not impossible if this does stay over water, which is why this is so concerning, because as it eventually turns off to the northeast, it's going to hit some sort of land more than likely, which means that we are going to potentially see catastrophic impacts somewhere in the Caribbean Sea. Now, this upcoming hurricane could take a nightmare track when it comes to the potential for substantial impacts to areas like Cuba, even possibly the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica. So let's go and look at the spaghetti models. This gives us an idea of where this tropical system could track over the next 7 to 10 days. This is what it looks like between now and Sunday. It is barely going to move over the next few days. In fact, it may not move very much at all. It's basically going to be sitting in the central Caribbean Sea. Now, one thing I do want to point out, if this were to slowly drift to the north, we could see the potential for major to catastrophic flooding in areas like Haiti and the Dominican Republic. This is about a 50-50 chance, which is kind of crazy to say since this is only about 3 days from now. There's also a possibility that it'll shift further to the west, which this is what I think will happen. I think it's going to move a little bit further to the west, just to the south of Jamaica by around early Sunday. As we go into Monday into Tuesday, that is when it should start to pick up speed as a cutoff low will start to make its way across the United States, and a more favorable steering pattern will help this to be able to move off to the northeast. The question is, how fast is that going to happen, and where will this tropical system be by that point? So this is again Tuesday morning. Notice how a few of these ensemble members do bring this right over Haiti and the Dominican Republic. There's also a lot of them that bring this to major hurricane status, some of these near category 4 to 5 intensity in the central Caribbean Sea by Tuesday, just outside of Jamaica. And then by Tuesday evening into Wednesday, notice how all of these start to turn this system off to the northeast as a very intense hurricane moving right into Cuba, the Bahamas, and also impacting areas like Haiti. So there's really two different scenarios at play. There's obviously a lot of scenarios here, but the two main scenarios would be either one, this turns much quicker off to the northeast and in the direction of Haiti over the next couple of days. There's also a much more likely scenario at this point where this will move more to the west and then eventually turn somewhere over Cuba. Now, I have alluded to this a couple of times in this forecast, but yes, there is a possibility that this tropical system could impact Florida. I think really the only thing that would happen is that this tropical system could go much further to the west than forecasted and kind of turn its way up through central Cuba and then go right through the Bahamas. This would at least be close enough to bring some impacts mainly to southeastern Florida during the middle of next week. This is not a super significant storm system if it were to do this, but with this being almost undoubtedly a major hurricane just to the east of Florida taking this particular trajectory, there would be at least some sort of impacts to southeast Florida. There's always an off chance too that over the next couple of days, Melissa goes way further west than forecasted and then eventually turns off to the north somewhere in far western Cuba and could impact southern Florida more substantially. Now, do I think this will happen? No, but it is a possibility, and if Melissa were to shift any further to the west over the next few days, this scenario would almost undoubtedly be in play at that point. I'd say though there's only about a 3 to 4% chance that this actually happens where we see a landfalling hurricane in Florida or really anywhere in the United States in this case. But keep in mind, we are still about 7 days out from this tropical system even being up here, which means that there could be a lot of change over the next 7 days. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. We'll continue to provide daily updates on this as they come. And this is also very concerning. This is some of the guidance in terms of intensity for Tropical Storm Melissa from a bunch of different computer models. There's only a couple that really still keep this down to your tropical storm intensity for the next 7 days, but about 5 days from now, there are now 4 different models that bring this to a high-end category 4 or low-end category 5 hurricane, and I honestly think that this has a very high chance of at least becoming a major hurricane in the Caribbean Sea, which means that we would almost undoubtedly see major catastrophic impacts to parts of either Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, or the Dominican Republic. So if you are in any of these 4 countries, make sure that you are preparing for the possibility of hurricane force winds, storm surge, and major flooding. Major flooding seems like it could be one of the biggest problems depending on where Melissa stalls over the next few days. Now, these are a couple simulations to give you an idea of what could happen with Melissa over the next few days, and this is a very unpredictable tropical system to begin with. This is the icon model. As we go into Friday and Saturday, this will likely become some sort of hurricane just off the coast of Jamaica. Notice how slowly it's moving Saturday, Sunday, and Monday right over Jamaica. This could be a potentially catastrophic storm system when it comes to purely flooding alone for parts of Jamaica, Cuba, and also Haiti. As we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, that is when the icon model shows this racing off to the northeast. There's also another scenario at play where the European model, for example, shows this kind of just stalling, not really intensifying much until Sunday or Monday, and that eventually becomes a hurricane in the far western Caribbean Sea. It still turns off to the northeast, but it really is an intense hurricane going right through Cuba on Wednesday, as at least a Category 4 hurricane in this case. So that is obviously very concerning. Then it goes to the Bahamas as an intense hurricane, possibly impacting southeast Florida, at least minimally, and then eventually it's out to sea. So that's another scenario. This is what the Icon model is showing in terms of total rainfall that could fall out of the system between now all the way through Tuesday of next week. And this is just absurd. All of this really dark brown color, that is anywhere from 500 to 1500 millimeters of rainfall. Keep in mind that 500 millimeters of rainfall, that's about 20 inches of rain. There could be some spots upwards of 40 to 60 inches of rain in parts of the Caribbean from this storm system. That is, again, just unbelievably rare. So we need to watch this very closely. Let's hope this thing does not stall, because if it does stall anywhere, especially close to like Jamaica, for example, we could have a catastrophic flooding event take place. Now, for the rest of the United States, our weather is going to be fairly active over the next 7 days, as we are expecting our next big storm system to arrive tomorrow to the southern plains, where isolated severe weather is a possibility, mainly in the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. Damaging winds, some isolated hail, maybe a brief tornado could be squeezed out by a storm tomorrow evening. And then on Friday, I think this may be the day to watch for a more organized threat of severe weather. I do at least think some hail, wind, and perhaps a couple of tornadoes will be on the table, mainly across central West Texas, also across Oklahoma Friday. And then on Saturday, we're going to be watching for some showers and storms to make their way towards the Mississippi Valley. Not expecting severe weather there. And then Sunday into Monday is when a big storm system is going to eject right over the Rockies. And this could be our next big storm when it comes to a more significant threat of severe weather, perhaps even a severe weather outbreak. Monday is definitely a day we need to watch for closely. It's going to depend on the evolution of this low pressure system. However, I do think at least some severe weather is possible from the Midwest all the way through the southern plains on Monday. And then Tuesday, we'll be watching for some severe weather to make its way into the Ohio Valley. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're mainly going to be talking about the East Coast. And then eventually by next weekend, things become more uncertain. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. And also make sure to check out our 24/7 weather camera live stream. This is on our second channel, More Max Velocity. It's also the top link in the description below. There's tons of weather cameras across the United States. You can watch them on this channel with relaxing music as well. Again, go check it out. Top link in the description below, and we'll see you all again in the next forecast.